Man, is it hard to talk bad about this bike when she's providing me with all these beautiful views, great moments, but now the number one thing that bothers me the most about this bike is how hot she gets. Now don't get me wrong guys, I'm in a tropical country right now. It is naturally hot out here, but I'll also tell you that this bike cooks up from underneath you, man. And that's something to consider if you're gonna use this bike every single day. All of that heat gets pushed into your seat and it ends up cooking up your bottom parts. We'll leave it at that. And also, a lot of the heat gets dispersed. The wind that comes into the engine gets pushed into your ankles, which is actually nice during the winter because it heats you up a little bit, but it is about 30 degrees Celsius outside, which is like 80 Fahrenheit, but the humidity out here kills me, man. It is about 80% humidity today and it makes it feel a lot hotter. So if you're sitting in stop and go traffic, oh my lord, she just gets too hot and is just almost unbearable sometimes. So I actually avoid going out at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. From 12 to 3 o'clock I try to avoid going out unless it's a nice day like this. I wouldn't say that I would stay away from buying this bike because of that, but if you're using this bike every day like myself, then yeah, it's something to consider for sure. And the second thing that bothers me the most when it comes to owning this bike and riding her every day and going on tours with her is the gas mileage. She does provide me with all these beautiful views in comfort and great reliability, but I have to be honest that I don't love the gas mileage on this bike. Now, the mileage on this bike isn't as bad as a lot of the 1000cc class bikes, and it's not absolutely horrible, but still, she isn't the greatest. She's right now getting me about 40 miles per gallon, which is 17 kilometers per liter on my touring days, and about 15 kilometers per liter or 35 miles per gallon on the city. So it isn't the greatest. I mean, it's compared to a car, my Lexus at home gets better mileage than this bike. So you would think that a motorbike would be getting a lot better mileage, especially a sport touring bike, right? But it's not the case with this bike because she just produces so much power. From any moment you just pull the throttle and on the twisties anywhere. And actually I just had a conversation with one of our subscribers here about this bike versus the ZX-10R, and he asked me what's the difference between both of them in terms of torque. Well, this bike brings you power from the low RPMs. So up in here, you pull the throttle like that, you might actually have an upper hand. Obviously, I'm not gonna go and race on these roads, but just for the sake of comparison, I would say that this bike actually has an upper hand up until a certain point, right? After that, then obviously our ZX-10R is going to be much faster, but that's not the point. If you're coming up on the mountains and you're touring and you got your wife with you and you're gonna go camping on a bike and you want to go far away, then this bike is for you. If you're just going out and doing trek days, then obviously I would go with the ZX10, but that's not what this video is about. Look at this nice day, guys. What a beautiful view. This is what I love about bikes. But I don't know where I am, and it looks like the earthquake brought down a big landslide here. I don't know how this whole thing didn't fall off, man. God forbid. I better get out of here because that thing does not look fun. It looks like they're clearing up, so maybe it did come down. Very sad. I hope you guys are all right out there. Shout out to my Taiwanese friends. Thank you for hosting me in your beautiful country. What a beautiful place. And they're great people too, so thank you guys for having me in here. But and the fourth thing that bothers me the most with this bike is her overall dimensions, especially her weight. Look, over here, I'm on a downhill, right? I had to stop over here for a little minute. And it's a good way to show you guys that if you can't flat foot this bike, man, it's gonna be a pain in the butt to get this thing moving. And this is a small example here because technically speaking, I could have stopped that way in first gear and it would have been safer, but I'm just giving you this small example because when you're riding this thing in the city and you gotta park her in a tight space, it becomes a hassle. And she's very wide as well. This bike is very wide for a 1000cc bike. Again, it is a sport touring machine, right? But even then, she's very wide and she's pretty long. Not as long and wide as a Hayabusa, for instance, I believe. But still, if you're making the decision of purchasing this bike to use it daily like I am, then that's something to consider. Now, I might be nitpicking with some of these things, but this is just my experience using this bike. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love this bike. I would not change her for any other bike in the market simply because of how great she is in terms of everything. I love roads like this where I kind of don't know where I am. Obviously I have a nice map right here, but I've never been in this specific place. So I'm gonna go a bit slow here, going down hills in first gear. The brakes work well, but you never know what can jump out of these curves and turns, so it's better to ride safe when you don't know the roads. And it is a bit rough here, especially after the earthquake. Lots of parts of the roads got broken, and gotta be more and more careful, guys. But always stay alert, man. Always stay alert. It is not a joke with these bikes, and these things are heavy and they're big, they're beautiful and they're fun. But let's stay alert. Drink your cup of coffee if you're gonna go out on a long ride. So if you're considering this bike over like a Ninja 650 or even over a Ninja 400, her weight has to be considered. And how tall she is, how wide she is also has to be considered, because when you're maneuvering this thing in tight spaces and whatnot, it can become a hassle. But definitely keep that in mind. It's a beautiful small town. I don't think I've ever been here, but this is one of the greatest reasons why I ride right here, guys. Beautiful places I never would have imagined I'd be in. And the fourth thing that bothers me the most about this bike is how expensive some Kawasaki parts are, such as the Pioneers, whatever you want to call them, the saddlebags that Kawasaki makes. They're $1,000. I mean, that to me is outrageous. Now, I know a lot of you guys own this bike and you use those bags and you swear by them, and that's awesome, beautiful. Now, I'm not saying that they're not useful. They certainly are very useful, and they make your bike look beautiful. I mean, this bike is designed for them. It's super easy to take them on and off, but that's not the point. If you ask me for $500 for those saddlebags, okay, I might look into them. I still would think that they're a bit expensive, but $1,000 is just outrageous. And it's the same with the top box with this bike. In fact, from the factory, you cannot install the Kawasaki Pioneers and the top box in the back together. This bike does not allow for that. Another thing for you to keep in mind, right? You're gonna have to look at aftermarket parts for that. And so even with that, if you only want the top box in the back with the bracket and all the parts, it comes up to be over $1,000, which to me is crazy. They also sell a think bag on their website for about $200 I think. It's like $175 I looked at yesterday. $175 for that. Okay, lots of competitors sell a saddlebag at about the same price point, but which leads me to the fifth and final thing that bothers me the most about this bike, which is the ergonomics. Now with this bike, again, emphasis on sport touring, right? You are still leaned forward a little bit, and so after I would say 5 hours of riding, sometimes more than that, and I say this because you're in this V shape right here, and your knees are always pressed up against the tank, putting a lot of pressure on your legs, especially if you're riding it correctly, which means that you're not putting pressure on the handlebars. Like I said in my last video, you want to ride it like you're playing the piano, right? You don't want to put a lot of your weight on the handlebars, or as the least amount of weight that you can on your handlebars, because any weight that you put, you see, gives input to the bike, and that can become dangerous. And I believe what most people do is, if you know you're going on a long day riding, 2 hours isn't long, 3 hours is not that long, but again, you're going over 5-6 hours riding in one day, I would already, every hour from the beginning, I would stop, take a little water break, stretch out my legs, and then get going. And this is a good plan for you to not feel fatigued, and it keeps you more awake as well. I mean, that's probably obvious to a lot of you guys who own this bike already, or who like to tour on bikes in general, but it's always good to remind you of that, because that's what I've been doing. I take a break about every hour or so, and it helps out, but still. But then again, guys, that is just my personal opinion, and this is very subjective, guys, because I run a lot. Right now I'm running about a marathon worth of miles every week, sometimes more, and I hike a lot as well. I climb really, really tall mountains. In fact, I'm attempting to climb all of Taiwan's highest 100 mountains right now. So one of the problems that it comes with that is you end up wearing your knees more than you should. I don't have any knee pains. I do a lot of exercises to prevent that, and I do a lot of exercises on my back too. Lots of workouts, lots of calisthenics for my back. So that helps me to be more comfortable on my bike. And it's hard to say if this bike will be super comfortable for you, as she is to me, Because even if you go and you test drive this bike for a few minutes out the dealership, I don't imagine they're gonna allow you to go touring on the bike for a full day for you to really discover what kind of discomfort she might bring you in comparison to other bikes. But to me, she's been great. And I love bikes because it also inspires you to go out more, have a good time, and explore the world. You can't be locked in your room for too long, man. That just drives you crazy. You gotta go out sometimes, put on your riding boots, put on your gear or don't. Whatever you're gonna do, man, get out of your house and have a good time, but always stay alert and stay alive. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time.